Now that we've seen how to use the payment formula to determine your monthly payments on a mortgage based upon how much you spent on the house, now we're going to flip that. And we're going to say, based upon my income level, how much can I afford? What size house, monetarily speaking? What kind of payment can I afford, right? I don't know. Maybe I can buy a $200,000 house. Maybe I can buy a $300,000 house. Maybe I can afford, a $50,000 house. What kind of house can I afford, and what would my payments have to be? Okay, so that's the question we're going to try to answer. Now, according to our textbook, financial advisors tend to recommend that you don't spend over 28% of your gross monthly income toward mortgage. Okay, so you're keeping your mortgage payment should be less than or equal to 28% of your gross monthly income. Now, this is just your gross income, your gross annual income divided by 12. Okay, and yeah, your debts in total, not just your mortgage, but including your car debt, your school loans, your credit card debt, all that stuff together, and your mortgage shouldn't exceed 36% of your overall gross income. Okay, so those two amounts are important, but the 28% is really going to go toward the mortgage. All right. So let's see. So let's say you made $90,000 as your gross income for a year. And now if you were married, you would include your spouses in that. It'd be yours and your spouse's income would be totaled in there. Okay. Now this is before, remember when we did income tax, this would be before you take off your adjustments. This would be before you take off your exemptions and deductions and all that. This is your actual gross income. Okay. So they suggest 28%, no higher than 28%. You can always be lower, but if you get higher than 28%, you're going to get into some trouble where you can't afford things. Okay. So let's figure out what that is. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out what payment we can afford, and then therefore solve for P, which is your mortgage amount. Okay. So with a gross income of $90,000, you want to figure out what your gross monthly income is. Okay, so you take that 90,000, I'll call it, we'll just write it out. Gross monthly income is going to be, capitalize that, keep it consistent, 90,000 divided by 12. Okay, so it's just that, simple, divided up evenly. And we get 7,500. So that's your gross monthly income, 7,500. So you can, according to these financial advisors, you could put up to 28% of that toward your mortgage, right? So max mortgage payment is going to be that 7,500 times 0.28. Okay, so 7,500 times 0.28, oops, there, is 2,100. Oops, $2,100. Okay, very good. So that's how much you can actually pay on a mortgage each month with a $90,000 income. Okay, according to these financial advisors, anyway. So now we got to figure out with this payment how expensive of a house could I buy, or at least what is the loan that I could take out, I could afford to take out. So we're going to put the 2,100 in for the payment and solve for P. So we get $2,100 equals P times. Now I didn't put a rate up here and all that stuff or time period. Let's assume it's a 30-year mortgage. So T equals 30. Let's go with an N value of 12. So it's monthly payments again. And let's throw an interest rate up there of 8%, which is the same interest rate that we dealt with in the last example. Okay. So I'm going to put all that stuff into my formula. So my interest rate is 0.08. The N is 12. And then we divide all of that by 1 minus the quantity, 1 plus the quantity, no, minus, it was minus. 1 minus the quantity of 1 plus 0.08 over 12 raised to the negative NT, which is again our 360. Alright, so I'm just going to put the 360 in there so that it's already calculated that NT value, negative 360. Alright, so then got to go through what I would tend to do is just calculate these values and then send them over to the other side of the equation. You got to solve for P. So let's just say that this is P times 0.00 repeated 6. Remember, 0.08 divided by 12 is 0.006 repeated. And then this stuff on the bottom, I got to run that through on my calculator here. I'm going to type in 1 minus parenthesis 1 plus 0.08 over 12 parenthesis raised to the negative 360 power. And there, hopefully you can kind of see how I punched that in. And then I hit enter, and I get a value of 0.90855666276. So if that's equal to 2100, right, that whole fraction, then you're going to just multiply by the denominator and divide by the numerator, okay? So P, right, you multiply both sides by the denominator, you divide by the numerator, it's basically multiplying by the reciprocal of that fraction. So P is equal to 2100 times the 0.908 ... that number on the bottom, all over this number here, 0.006 repeated. And if I punch all that into the calculator, keeping as many decimals as I can, so I take that number, I hit times 2100, enter, and then divide by 0.00666667. And I get $286,195. So the mortgage that I could actually take out, according to this, is a $286,195 mortgage. All right, so we're going to round to the nearest dollar here. I think a lot of the problems in your book are going to, or on my math lab and in the book, are going to ask you to round to the nearest dollar. So I'm going to go with that. But if you needed to round to the nearest penny, you could do that. You could just go 2 more decimal places. Okay. And so that's the actual loan amount. But that's not the sale price of the house. Okay, remember, the sale price of the house is another percentage back onto this. So remember, this amount is after you've taken the down payment off. So let's assume again another 10% down payment. So this would have to be, this amount is after you take the down payment off. So how do you solve that? That's kind of an interesting question. And the solution is not too crazy. It's doable. Let's get rid of all that extra stuff. Okay, so to find the sale price, I know that if I take the sale price and multiply it by 0.9, that's 90%, I'll get the P value, right? It's the same as taking 10% off for the down payment. Okay, so P is the loan amount. Maybe I'll just write loan amount. So the sale price times 90% is the loan amount. Sale price times 10% is the down payment. And you take that 10% off, you get 90%. So if this is my loan amount, and I solve for the sale price, $286,195, I need to divide both sides by the 0.9 to solve. So the sale price is equal to that previous number there, which is 286,195 divided by 0.9, and that gives me a $317,994 house. So if I was making $90,000 a year, according to this information, if I want a 30-year mortgage, making monthly payments at 8% interest, and a 10% down payment, take all that into consideration, it appears that I'd be able to purchase about a $318,000 home. Okay, that's kind of the max, right? You would not want to exceed that. Now, just some advice. I've been through working with realtors before, and I've actually had some really good realtors and some that were a little sketchy, but one realtor we really appreciated, was pretty honest with us about a lot of things. But one thing your realtor will do, if you tell them, what your gross income is, they're going to go through this and they're going to say, oh, you can afford a $318,000 house then. Your realtor, because they make commission off the amount that is the amount that's the sale price. So your realtor, if you get a realtor that helps you buy houses, they make like a 7% commission off of this, okay? And it's always off the sale price. So they want the sale price as high as possible without going over your, what you can afford. And so if you can afford a $318,000 house, guarantee you they're not going to show you anything under $310,000. And they may even bump it up to $320,000 or $330,000 just to see if you'll take it. So be careful. You don't have to go up to that amount. If you're content with a $200,000 house, go with it. This is just kind of to show you what a maximum is. And your realtors, remember, when there's, there are some very good realtors out there, but just remember, when there's money transaction at stake here, you don't want to just blindly trust everybody who's got money in the game, right? Or skin in the game, they say. So just be aware of that. Realtors are going to try to push this number up as close to that as they can, whether it's reasonable for you or not. And really only you can judge whether you're, what your comfort level is with these purchases, and really what you need. Why buy a $318,000 house if you're fine with a $250,000 house, right? Or a $100,000 house. I mean, this is just kind of a general principle that you definitely don't want to exceed that, because if you go over that, you're going to have to start eating into, your grocery bill, your gas bill in order to make payments, and then things become a bit difficult. Okay, so we don't want to put anybody in trouble financially. So that's what financial advisors tend to use this as a general ballpark. It's not perfect. Some people can afford more, some people can afford less based upon their spending habits, how much they have saved, those sorts of things, their investments. There's lots of variables that go into this. It just gives you a general ballpark, some ideas to think about as you're looking at, maybe purchasing a house in the future.